How to Design Your Goal Setting by Rohn. Go where the expectations are so strong that they provoke you, push you. Urgently insist that you not remain in one place. That way, you will grow and change. Achievement depends on effective goal setting and monitoring in the same way that a successful drive to the grocery store depends on knowing when to apply the brakes and step on the gas pedal. Ambitious people know that everything they do and every discipline they adhere to form the links in the chain of events that will lead them to their final destination. Knowing where you're going. Goals are important for a genuinely success-oriented person. Without them, you're just playing around. The difference between a goal-directed individual and someone without goals is like the difference between a Wimbledon champion and a kid batting a tennis ball around on a court with no net, no opponent to bring out the best in him, and no way of keeping score. Despite everything that's been written about the importance of goal setting, very few people actually put it into practice. It's always amazed me, the way the average person devotes more thought and effort to planning his or her 2-week vacation than to planning his life. Goals represent challenge in its most positive form. Leaders have their personal goals, as well as those of their organization, clearly in focus. In fact, one of the principal responsibilities of leadership is defining goals for the vast majority of people who aren't able to do it for themselves. Over the years, I've developed some ideas about effective goal setting, and I'd like to share those with you. I also want to point out some traps of goal-directed behavior that aren't usually talked about but certainly ought to be. When I was a kid, I used to dream what it would be like to buy a ticket on a train and just go someplace. I didn't really think about where I'd be going or how long it would take to get there. I just loved the idea of getting on the train and letting it take me someplace. I guess there's still something appealing about that idea, but it's not really the way you should live your life as a mature human being. When you grow up, you buy a ticket on a train or a plane because you want to go someplace and you know exactly where you're going. You may have to change planes in a different city, your flight may be cancelled. Or you may have to switch to another flight. You may not feel like talking to the person seated next to you, but you will persist. You know where you're headed, and you're quite determined to get there. That's goal-directed behavior in its simplest form. There are short-term goals and long-term goals. Sometimes, you're flying across the country, other times, you're just walking down to the corner grocery store. Long-term goals are the equivalent of a major journey. When you reach the point where you've achieved your long-term goals, your life will be fundamentally changed, and the process of getting to that point will have transformed you into a stronger, wiser, and higher-performing person. How can you identify your long-term goals? On a sheet of paper or in a notebook, write these 5 headings. 1. What do I want to do? 2. Who do I want to be? 3. What do I want to see? 4. What do I want to have? 5. Where do I want to go? Under each of these categories, write down several possible long-term goals. Be very relaxed about this. Just allow your mind to flow, and come up with 3 to 6 ideas for each category. Don't worry about a lot of details at this point, and don't spend too much time describing a particular goal. For example, refer to Category 1. Suppose you want to write a book about the history of your family going back to the arrival of your great-grandparents in the United States. Just quickly jot down family history. Then it occurs to you that you've always wanted to see the pyramids in Egypt, so you write pyramids. Keep writing down ideas as long as the list of categories continues to inspire. You'll probably be surprised at some of the things that turn up. You may have kept a great many desires and aspirations hidden in the back of your mind. But the opportunity to write them down will move them to the forefront of your consciousness. That's one of the benefits of this technique. When you're satisfied with your list of long-term goals, read through the list once again. Then beside each item, write the number of years that you believe it will take you to achieve that particular goal. It's best to round off the numbers into 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10 year time frames. For example, you may estimate that it will take you 10 years to research and write the book on your family history, but you'll need only 5 years to reach a position where you can take a trip to the pyramids. Create a time frame like this for every one of your long-term goals. When you're finished entering your time frames, there should be a fairly balanced distribution for all your goals. If there are many 1 and 3 year objectives but only a few in the 10-year category, maybe you need to think more about what you really want your life to add up to, what kind of life you really want to build over the long run. But if there's a preponderance of 10-year goals and relatively few of the shorter-term variety, this may be an indication that you tend to put things off. Keep working on your list, adding and subtracting goals with various time frames until you've created a more or less even distribution. Now comes the really challenging and interesting part. So far you've just been adding things to the list, but now it's time to start making some selections. Now, you're going to start asking yourself what's really important compared to what might just be fun.
Choose 4 goals from each of the 4 time frames, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10 year. You now have 16 separate goals. So far you've only referred to them in shorthand fashion, but now you're going to start seeing them very clearly in your mind's eye. You're going to see each goal just as if it were being realized this very minute, and you're going to write down a detailed description of exactly what you see. Do you intend to open a handmade furniture store in 3 years? What will the store look like from the street? Will there be gold leaf lettering on the windows? Or will there be a sign hanging over the door instead? How many square feet will the store contain? Will there be a showroom area for the furniture in front and a workspace in back, or will the furniture be built at a different location? Do you intend to have any employees, or will you run the business entirely by yourself? Think of all the questions that need to be answered in order to see your goal with absolute clarity, and then write the information down. That written record will become one of your most important personal possessions. But that's not all. Any goal is a powerful motivator only if there's a powerful reason behind it. Why do you want to achieve your goals? Why do you want to own a handmade furniture store, or a private airplane, or a newspaper in a small town in Vermont? Why do you want to compete in a triathlon, or visit the Australian outback, or be the first woman in your family to earn a PhD? Write down your reasons for wanting each goal in the same degree of detail that you used to write your descriptions. If you can't find a clear and convincing reason for each of your 16 goals, do some serious re-evaluating. You may have more whims or pipe dreams than real goals, and now is the right time to make that discovery. Keep working on your list until you have 16 clearly envisioned, strongly motivating long-term goals. At regular intervals, review what you've written and keep careful track of your progress toward these objectives. Above all, persevere. Goal setting is a very important first step, but goal achievement is a continuous, lifelong process. That's what makes it so challenging. That's also why it's so extremely rewarding to finally attain your long-term goals. Becoming a millionaire. Let me give you a scenario for setting your goals. When I started making my first list, Mr. Schoaf said, "Mr. Rohn, it looks like we're going to be together for a while. I've got a suggestion for you. You are a 25-year-old American male. Sure, you've made some mistakes, but now you're on the road to better things. You've got the motivation to make a difference. This is America. The possibilities are endless. Why don't you set a goal of becoming a millionaire?" Millionaire, it's got a nice ring to it. As he was about to explain why becoming a millionaire is a worthy goal, I thought, the man doesn't need to teach me why. It would be great to have $1,000,000. But he had a reason that was infinitely more compelling than mine. It is one of the greatest lessons I have ever learned, and I'm about to share it with you. Here's what Mr. Schoaf said: set a goal of becoming a millionaire for what it will make of you to achieve it. Set a goal that will make you reach for the stars. What a great reason for setting goals. And here's why: the greatest value in life is not what you obtain, the greatest value in life is what you become along the way. The major question to ask on the job is not, what am I getting here? A much more powerful question is, what am I becoming here? It's not what you get that makes you valuable, it's what you become along the way that makes you valuable. Then Mr. Schoaf explained, when you finally have become a millionaire, what's important is not the money. You can just give the money away. I did. Better than that. I lost it all. I was rich by the age of 31, a millionaire. And I was broke by the age of 33. I didn't have to give it all away. Because I lost it all. I made many foolish mistakes. You see, as a farm boy from Idaho, that early money drove me bonkers. If I saw something I liked, I would ask, how many colors does it come in? I'll buy them all. I just went crazy. What an experience that was. I learned that Mr. Schoaf was right. When I found myself broke at age 33, I discovered for myself that the money did not mean that much. It represented only a fraction of all my assets. And when I began concentrating on these other assets, my skills, my discipline, my family, the money came back into my life. Let me give you the key phrase of setting goals: set the kind of goals that will make you a better person when you achieve them, or when you are in the process of achieving them. Always ask yourself, what will this goal make of me? If I set this goal and go forward, how will this change me in the process? What a wonderful new concept in the setting of goals. 2 rules for goal setting. I have 2 important rules for setting goals. By following these rules, you will achieve a great deal and become more than you ever could have imagined. Here's the first rule: don't set your goals too low. In leadership training, we teach a similar guideline: don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow. Go where the expectations are high. Go where the demands are high. Go where the pressure is to perform, to grow, to change, to read, to study, to develop new skills. I belong to a small group of people that conducts business around the world. You would not believe what we expect of each other in terms of excellence. Why? So that we can each grow. So that we can contribute something unprecedented to the benefit of the group.
It's called living at the summit. Go where the demands are high. Go where the expectations are so strong that they motivate you, push you, urgently insist that you not remain in the same place. That way, you will grow and change. So don't set your goals too low. What about the guy who says, well, I don't need much? He is guaranteed not to become much. Here's rule number 2 for setting goals: don't compromise. Don't sell out. There were some things back in the early years for which I paid too big a price. If I had known how much it was going to cost me, I never would have paid that price, but I didn't know it at the time. So don't sell out, and, as the old saying goes, count the costs. Remember, in that ancient story, Judas got the money. That sounds like a success story. And it is true that 30 pieces of silver in those days was a sizable fortune. But having a name that is synonymous with traitor is not what I would call a success story. Interestingly enough, when Judas got the money after becoming a traitor, he was unhappy. He wasn't unhappy with the money. He was unhappy with himself. You see, the greatest source of unhappiness doesn't come from the outside world. The greatest source of unhappiness comes from within. To alleviate his unhappiness, Judas tried to return the money. But no one would take it back. So he decided to just throw the money away. Why would he throw his fortune away? Because he was so unhappy with himself. Of course, that wasn't the end of the scenario. Throwing his fortune away did not change what Judas had become, a traitor. In total frustration, he hung himself. Why did Judas have such a tragic end? Because he was so unhappy with himself. He sold out. He paid too big a price. Don't compromise your values. Don't compromise your virtue. Don't compromise your philosophy. There are 2 words from ancient scripture you need to keep in mind. The first is beware. This is the negative word. Be aware of what you become in pursuit of what you want. Don't sell out. Indeed, if Judas were to advise us today, he would tell us to beware. The second word, behold, is the positive one. Behold the possibilities and the opportunity. Behold the drama, behold the awesomeness, behold the uniqueness. Behold the majesty. What a positive word, behold. Set the kind of goals that will transform your life, that will make you far better than you are, far stronger than you currently are. And you will behold. Putting it down on paper. I've been encouraging you to set lofty, noble goals. But it's important to have a little fun in the process, too. On my first list of goals, I had a little revenge. My target was a man from budget finance who used to harass me. I got 2 or 3 payments behind, and one guy called incessantly, saying, "We're going to come get your car and tow it up and down the street in front of your neighbors." Whoa! He really tried to put me down. When I got my life straightened out, one of the first priorities on my list was budget finance. And when I finally had enough money for my back payments, I needed a little drama. I got the money in small bills and put it in a big briefcase. I walked into the budget finance office in Los Angeles and found the guy who harassed me so much. I went up to his desk and stood right in front of him. He said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I didn't say a word. I just opened up the briefcase and dumped a pile of money all over his desk, saying, "Count it. It's all there. I'll never be back." Then I turned around, walked out, and slammed the door. That might not be noble, but you've got to try it at least one time. Pay off your debts with a little drama. I got to check them off my list. What you have on your list is up to you. I keep my original list in my journal so I can go back 5 years and see where my priorities were. Often, I'm a little embarrassed when I go back to look at what I wrote and see what I thought was so important. Things like how my philosophy has changed from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. I compare my old list with my new list. But what's most important is what's valuable to me now, what I want my life to be now, where I want to go and what I want to do now.
Keep all of your lists of goals because they illustrate your ability to grow. They show your ability to change. And they show how your philosophy grows and expands. That's valuable information. The self-knowledge acid test. One thing you may not be thinking about now is preparing for the day you reach your goals, being ready, being worthy, becoming the person you need to be in pursuit of what you want. What good is an opportunity if you're not prepared to take advantage of it? It's no good. It won't do a thing for you. Be prepared. To help you with this preparation, here's what's called the self-knowledge acid test. Quickly, without thinking too much about it, list your 3 most important long-term, work-related goals. Is there a client you've been trying to sign for several months? Is there a major sale you've been trying to make? Are you hoping for a promotion or a partnership in the firm? These are objectives that you want to achieve that will take a while to get. Write them down. Again, without thinking too much about it, quickly list your 3 most important personal and spiritual goals. These are the things that will make a difference in your personal life. Do you want to go to church more often than just on holidays? Grasping all you can from the Sunday sermon? Do you want to spend more quality time with your kids? Do you want to turn the TV off during the dinner hour and actually talk about the important things in life with your family? Do you want to make more dates with your spouse? Do you want to plan a much-needed family vacation? What do you want? What are your most important health-related goals? Do you want to make a conscious effort to exercise more? To eat better? To lose some weight? To get in shape? What are the 3 most important personal and spiritual goals that you have? Write them down. It doesn't matter what they are. Just make a note of them. Take some time to really visualize what the achievement of these goals would mean to you. What does your future hold for you if you land that big client? What does your future look like if you get that promotion, if you spend more time with your family, if you plan more outings with your spouse? Really spend some time on this. It's important. What does it all look like? Ask yourself, is this really my goal? Is this what I truly want? Is it a positive goal? Is it important enough to me to become what it takes to reach this goal? Is it worth it? If your 3 goals on the career side and 3 goals on the personal side don't stand up to this scrutiny, you need to take some time to carefully redefine a few things. Redefine your list. Figure out the origin of these goals, what actually is important to you, and how hard you'll really work to achieve them. When your goals are truly important and meaningful to you, you will not only eventually achieve them, you will also deserve all of the rewards that you reap in the process of doing so.
Progress through self-preparation. Self-preparation is a discipline that has 2 benefits. The first is that it moves you towards your goal. You've already got it in your mind. You know where you want to go. You're getting ready for it. You're doing all the things you're supposed to do. By getting ready to achieve your goals, you are moving closer to them. The second major benefit to self-preparation is that it refuels your mission. The things that you are doing today are getting you ready for tomorrow. It's exciting. You know that you're getting closer every day. Your ambition must be kept alive. It must continue to move forward, otherwise, you're just daydreaming. You must keep active and keep moving forward so your ambition can fuel you and motivate you to reach where you want to be. This method of self-preparation involves 3 steps. Step 1. Carefully consider where the next opportunity for reaching your goal will originate. Where will it come from? Will it come from networking with your colleagues? Will it come from reading the last book that you bought, the book that's still sitting on your shelf waiting to give you some answers? Carefully consider the next opportunity that will push you forward toward your goal. If you don't know where the next opportunity will originate, here's what you have to do. For each of your major goals, take out a separate piece of paper. Write down your goal at the top and start listing all reasonable resources. Write down every possible place where you could find the opportunity to achieve this goal. Then classify each resource. Ask yourself, is this resource a sure thing? A good bet? Or is it unlikely? A long shot? Ask yourself these questions, and classify all of the resources you have written down. That's the first step. The second step in this method of self-preparation is to make sure you know what you need to do to be prepared for your opportunities. Take your sure things first. Figure out what you need to do to be prepared when they happen. Break down your preparation into concrete steps. Make sure that you know exactly what you have to do to take advantage of the opportunity when it comes your way. Let's say that one of the top priorities on your career list of goals is to get a particular new client. Let's take it one step further and say that on your resource list for this goal, you'd like to have a lunch meeting with a friend who just happens to be the mentor of the client you're going after. Is this friend of yours a sure bet on your resource list? Suppose he is. You know this guy is a tremendous consulting source for the client you want, and the client you want really listens to the opinions and advice of your friend. So you're getting ready to have lunch with your friend. What do? You've got to make sure that you're well informed about all the information and industry statistics that will impress your friend. You want to make him realize that he knows someone who could benefit from your knowledge, vitality, spirit, and experience. Impress him so much that he goes back to his friend, the client you're after, and tells this prospective client of yours that he needs to do business with you. In order to make this particular scenario a reality, go through your entire list of goals and resources and classify them. Break each resource into concrete steps of preparation. Start by working on the sure bets first, and then move down the line. The long shots will come through every so often. But start with the resources that will serve you best now. Get ready for the opportunities before they come your way. Step 3 in the self-preparation method is to do all you can to make each opportunity more likely to happen. After you've determined what you have to do to get ready, see what you can do to expedite the process. What can you do to increase the likelihood of this opportunity taking place? Go over your notes again and again. Continually use these 3 methods as you assess where you are now and where you need to go next to keep moving toward the achievements that are most important to you. By the way, this method of self-preparation works wherever you are in your journey. Whether you're close to your goals or you're just starting your journey, this method works. Have a base of knowledge to draw from. Build a reservoir of thoughts, ideas, philosophies, and experiences that are your own. Get ready to grow and change. And be prepared for a life worth living.
Tracking your progress. If you want to drive from your home to a store on the other side of town, you'll need an automobile with gas in the tank and the keys to start the car. But you'll also need to know how to drive. You'll need judgment based on life experiences to tell you when to step on the brakes if a traffic light changes to red. You'll need a desire to reach your destination so you don't keep stopping for coffee and a piece of pie every 10 minutes. You'll need to know how much time to allot for the trip so you can get home in time for whatever else you have to do. And you'll need enough maturity to call and say you're going to be late if you get stuck in a traffic jam. You can't measure these requirements with a yardstick. But they're as important to reaching your destination as the car, the gas, or the keys to start the engine. Let's continue this metaphor for another moment or two. There are all sorts of ways to keep track of the condition of a motor vehicle. You can look at the tires to see whether they've worn out their tread. You can look at the odometer to see how long it's been since you changed the oil, and you can turn on a switch and then walk around the car to see if the headlights and taillights are working properly. These are objective indicators of the condition of your car. Similarly, there are ways of objectively evaluating your achievements. Most people don't take advantage of them as often as they should, but they're available nonetheless. For example, you can put together a financial statement in order to determine your net worth. You can hire an appraiser to learn the market value of your house. You can compare where you were 10 years ago to where you are now to determine the level of progress you've made in your life. Achievement depends on effective goal setting and monitoring in the same way that a successful drive to the grocery store depends on knowing when to apply the brakes and when to step on the gas. But how can you track your progress and determine if you will be able to get where you want to go? In other words, are there ways of discovering whether you are doing what you need to do without having an accident? I believe there are ways of evaluating your goals just as there are ways of measuring depth of tread on a tire or the amount of gasoline in the tank of an automobile. To utilize these techniques, all you need is a commitment to be truly honest with yourself. At first, this kind of brutal honesty may be painful, but you must realize that true achievement is unlikely unless you pay the necessary price. Just as the gas gauge of a car indicates full and empty with several demarcations in between, you can learn whether you have enough fuel to get to your life's destinations. But while a car has only one gas gauge, your progress can be evaluated by 4 different imaginary gauges. Here's the first one. On the right-hand side of the gauge, corresponding to the letter F, for full, I want you to imagine a letter R, which stands for refusal. And on the left side of that gauge, I want you to imagine a letter C, which stands for complacency. If your goals are good and strong, there are certain things that you simply refuse to accept in yourself or in other people. In your work, you refuse to accept anything less than your best effort. That doesn't mean that things will always work out exactly as you had hoped and intended, but that's not the point. There will always be variables you can't control, but regardless, your level of effort should always be the maximum possible. With your family, your commitment should be just as strong. You should simply refuse to compromise in any area where your family's needs and welfare are concerned. And with yourself, you should similarly refuse to accept pettiness, dishonesty, or unethical behavior in Any form. On the left-hand side of the first character evaluation gauge is the letter C, which stands for complacency. But it could also be the letters LIS, standing for let it slide, or even WTDA, for what's the difference, anyway? Ask yourself where you stand on that scale. Do you have enough character to accept only your best effort? If not, it's time to make a pit stop right now. The second character rating gauge has the letter D on the right, and on the left is the letter M. The D stands for decision, and the M stands for maybe. Ask yourself, are you a person who comes to a fork in the road and turns either right or left? Or do you stop the car, scratch your chin, and say, well, maybe I'll go this way, and then again maybe I'll go that way, and in the end you go nowhere? Think about the big goals you have set in your life. It could be that you want to leave your job and start a business of your own. It could be that you want to get married. In any case, are you the kind of person who makes the necessary decisions and takes the necessary action to achieve those goals, or are you someone who says, well, maybe this just isn't meant to be? Now imagine a gauge with a big W on one side and an A on the other side. The W should be in bright red or orange, while the A should probably be a dingy green or pale yellow. That's because the W stands for want, as in I want it now, or I want it real bad, or I want it so much I'll do whatever it takes to get it. The W means you'll go to law school for 5 years at night while working full-time during the day because you want to be a lawyer. The W means you'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day to work on your novel because you want to be a writer. It means you'll travel from one end of the country to the other many times to find a doctor who can make your child well. I know people who have done all those things because they really wanted something, and eventually they got it. The A stands for apathy. That's where you don't really care what happens. And if you don't really care what happens, it's just as well, because the outcome will not be positive. Now we come to the last of our imaginary character gauges. On the right-hand side is the letter P, and that stands for promise, and on the left-hand side is the letter F, and that stands for fear. If you are a person of strong character, you will promise yourself that you will achieve your goals, or, it doesn't matter, because you never consider that possibility. You have made a promise and you are going to keep it. When you set out to drive to the grocery store, you don't stop at the doorway and think, what will I do if I don't make it? You have no time for fear. You simply intend to get to the grocery store. You know you are going to get there. And you will get there, it's simply guaranteed.
Visual chain thinking. Wouldn't you prefer a life of productivity rather than a life of endless tasks with little accomplishment? Of course. When you carefully set your goals and keep them at the forefront of your mind, you can work smarter instead of working longer. You'll know that a life worth living comes from a life of balance. In order to maintain that balance, here's a key technique that you can use in your life to help keep you on the right track. This technique is called visual chain thinking. Ambitious people know that each step toward their goals is not a singular step. Each discipline is not a singular discipline. Each project is not a singular project. Each sale is not a singular sale. They see everything they do, and every discipline they adhere to, as a link in the chain of events and actions that will lead them to their final destination. Every action and every discipline achieved today is a link in the chain. Every action and every discipline achieved tomorrow is a link. And every action and every discipline achieved in the more distant future is also a link. Your direction, activities, and disciplines all make up crucial links in your chain of success. When you can see that one thing affects everything else, when you come to realize that every discipline affects every discipline, when you look at your future as a chain that needs strong links all along the way, then you'll build a reservoir of strength and courage that will serve you well during the down times. When you can see that every link in the chain will eventually lead you to the things you want most out of life and to the person you want to become, then you won't grow discouraged, fearful, or impatient with today. When you can see where you're going through visual chain thinking, even on the toughest days, you'll keep moving toward your goals because you know where you're going. Building your visual chain of thought begins when you have well-defined plans for your career, your family activities, your investments, and your health. Your plans and goals are your visual chain. You know where you're going before you get there. It's ironic how we all understand the importance of mapping out a strategy for a football game or a basketball game. Not one professional team in the world begins a game without a game plan. But few of us take the time to map out such a strategy for our lives. But it's important to make this sort of plan. Here's the first rule for your game plan of life: don't begin the activities of your day until you know exactly what you plan to accomplish. Don't start your day until you have it planned. And do this every day. I know all this writing takes time and a disciplined effort. Remember, however, that reaching your goals is the fruitful result of discipline, not merely hope. Once you've mastered the art of planning your day, you're ready for the next level. Don't begin the activities of your week until you know exactly what you plan to accomplish. Don't start your week until you have it planned. Just imagine what life would be like if you took time out every Sunday to plan your week. Come Friday, you wouldn't be saying, "Boy, did this week fly by. Where did it go? What did I do?" No, if you plan your week before you start it, you'll know exactly what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, and what you need to work on. If you learn to plan your days as part of your overall game plan for the week, the parts will fit much better. Your days will be better. You will be more effective. You'll be working smarter, not harder. And when you've learned to plan your week, guess what? You've got to plan your month. Don't start your month until you've mapped out your game plan. By developing and following your game plan, your days, weeks, and months all become part of a larger plan, a bigger design you develop, a long-term view of your life, a visual chain. You'll start gaining a greater perspective of it all, because you are planning. If visually seeing your future is new to you, if you've never developed a game plan before, let me offer a few tips. There are two things you need to understand before you create a game plan. Number 1, a game plan, a visual chain of your future, is like a spreadsheet. Instead of listing numbers, you list activities. It's like a to-do list. And number 2, the technique of developing a game plan can be used for a single day, a single project, or a variety of projects that are happening simultaneously. Here's how you do it. First of all, you need to buy a pad of graph paper. Game plans work best on graph paper. Take a sheet of graph paper and make vertical columns corresponding to the number of days this plan is to cover. Then on the left-hand side of the paper, write the heading Activities. Under this heading, list all the activities to be accomplished within your time frame. Let's say, for example, that you've got 1 week to finalize a marketing plan. It's an overwhelming amount of work to complete, but it's got to be done. So, break it down piece by piece. The best way to start is by listing all of the individual components on the left-hand side of the page. Some of these things will need to be completed before others can be started. You need to obtain your market research results before you can determine your target market. You need to know your target market before you can develop your marketing strategy. You need to have your marketing strategy before you can create a budget for collateral materials, and so on. When you break down the project piece by piece and deadline by deadline, you can be more effective in putting together the appropriate parts of the puzzle, and in doing your own work while delegating the rest. The final result of developing your game plan is a clear visual presentation of the tasks before you. This method is used quite often in business to coordinate and develop projects of any length. It's the only way to see the entire project on paper and manage its progress. Admittedly, game plans are frustrating to create. They're frustrating because it's difficult to completely prioritize your life and all your projects. You may go through several sheets of graph paper before you produce the perfect format. But as soon as you develop your first one, you'll see the value in this discipline. Keep your game plan in plain sight. Put it up in your office where you can easily look at it. Have a copy of it at home and tape it to the refrigerator. Keep a copy in your journal for quick reference. Your game plan will serve as a constant reminder of all you need to do to get to where you want to go. If you're doing all you're scheduled to do, game plans are very rewarding. Day by day, week by week, month by month, you'll see the magic of your dreams and plans turning into reality. You will have an incredible feeling of being in charge of your life, your surroundings, and your future. It's like creating a work of art on the biggest canvas imaginable. It's creative. It's beautiful. This is powerful stuff. To dream a dream, plan for the dream, and then to watch your dream turn into reality. Here's what's really powerful about creating game plans: you can see your future right before your eyes. So on those days when your energy isn't up to par, your enthusiasm is a little low, your ambition isn't pushing you forward, and your attitude isn't on the positive side, use your game plan to see how far you've come. Take the time to visualize exactly where you're headed. On those days, it's your discipline and visual chain of the future that will push you ahead. People and circumstances may try to set you back, but your visual chain will propel you toward your goals.
Reasons to persevere. The Irish poet William Butler Yeats once wrote a poem describing some of the unfortunate characteristics of the modern world. One of the things Yeats noticed was that malevolent people seem to have the most energy, while good people become discouraged and doubtful of their own abilities. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are filled with a passionate intensity. Those are the words Yeats used. It's true that we can look around and see all sorts of things happening that we might wish were not happening, in people doing things that we might not admire. When we see that taking place, it's easy to start thinking, what's the use? What hope do I really have? Why don't I give up on all the things I've been trying to accomplish and just start taking it easy? Even goal-directed people feel that way sometimes. All of us have moments like that. That's when perseverance gets really, really tough. What's the answer? Well, it begins with this question: who are you working for? Besides yourself? Who is depending on you? Who will benefit if you persevere and succeed? Who will suffer if you give up and stop trying? Who can you reach out to and help once you've achieved your goals? For many people, the answers to these questions will appear quite readily. If you have a family, your spouse and your children are depending on you. Perhaps even your parents are depending on you now if they're elderly and require some care. But even if you're a single person or just starting out in your career, you can think of reasons to persevere and succeed that go beyond your personal needs. Maybe you would like to share some of your financial success with the schools that educated you, with the religious institutions that gave you spiritual guidance, or with a hospital that helped to heal you on some occasion. This sharing doesn't have to be limited to money either. If your work has given you certain skills, you can share your time and your abilities. You can, and you should. But even this isn't putting it strongly enough. It isn't just that you'll do better if you feel you're working for others in addition to yourself. You absolutely must find reasons outside of yourself to persevere if you want to keep going when the going gets tough. Hemingway wrote, "A man alone hasn't got a chance." This means that you need people to help you in life. It also means that you need people to help you. Need people who can become the real reasons for perseverance beyond material possessions or your financial success. What's in it for me can take you only so far. What's in it for somebody besides me can take you as far as you need to go. In the last days of World War II, the American cruiser Indianapolis was sunk by an enemy submarine. This was one of the most tragic incidents of the war for the American forces, and hundreds of men lost their lives. Many who made it through the initial attack had to spend days and nights in the water before rescuers arrived. The experience of trying to stay alive in the water was so overwhelming that many people simply gave up. In fact, the survivors later reported that virtually everyone wanted to give up at one time or another. But whenever someone wanted to quit trying, the others would talk to that person about the people back home who needed him and who were depending on him to survive. And if there was no one who was depending on him right then, they would talk about people in the future who would someday be needing him, people he hadn't yet met, people who hadn't even been born. They conjured up all sorts of reasons above and beyond simply surviving. This motivation beyond merely thinking of the self was often the only motivation that made these men persevere. And what was true for those men in wartime is also true in all of our lives, no matter what we're trying to accomplish. We need to look outward for reasons to persevere. Is there a better reason to go on than helping others on the road to your own success? I don't think so. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.